What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Devy YouTube channel. We have a Devy draft today. We're going to be diving into a real 6-round supplemental draft, basically a draft after that first year or whenever years it is into your Devy league, and you can actually take freshmen with other guys that they missed, right? So how do you compare Ollie Gordon's value with Jeremiah Smith's? We're going to be looking at that. It's a real Devy draft. Shout out Jordan from our Patreon. He dived in here from our Discord. He said, hey, I have one. I said, hey, can I use it? He said, yes. So we're going to be diving into it, looking at it, and going over all kinds of different things. I'm going to spotlight some guys I like. I'm going to talk about a little Devy strategy with you, talk about supplemental drafts, and just all of the above. So let's get into it. Let's start talking about what we're looking at when we're talking about Devy supplemental. So when you look at the first round here, when you're talking about kind of how players are getting valued, you'll see Ollie Gordon was taken at 102. So Ollie Gordon was still in this draft, as was Carson Beck. Jeremiah Smith, though, still went 101. So when you think of value, Jeremiah Smith is probably the third highest valued asset out there. So if you're one of those guys that you worry about those freshmen coming in, I know Jeremiah Smith's a talent. He's getting valued the highest that he's been valued ever, right? When we're thinking of like freshman wide receivers, this is the highest I've ever seen a freshman wide receiver get valued. And if that's the case, then you can definitely move off of him for some pieces of the NFL side, and you won't have to wait for 3 years, right? There's always risk to freshmen, even Jeremiah Smith, but it was interesting to see him go ahead of Ollie Gordon here, but he did, right? Then you have Carson Beck, Mika Hudson out there, Texas Tech. Shedeur Sanders going at 105 is kind of the big shocker to me. Eugene Wilson is a great grab there. I think he's a value play. Ryan Williams, Cameron Coleman, Trevor Etienne, DJ Lagway, JoJo Trader, and Colston Loveland. So you see a lot of a little bit of a mix between the freshmen and then some of the guys that are immediately coming later. I love the Loveland pick. I had to put him on there on the Devy draft thumbnail there because, Michigan guy, but, we've had him as tight end 1 year pretty much all offseason. Since January, we've talked about him being there. And if you can get him at 112, I like that play, especially if you can have that production next year, right, after the season. The big thing I want to talk about in terms of that first round, quarterbacks, right? I'm a very big advocate of not reaching on quarterbacks. Don't take the quarterbacks because of how volatile they are. And really in this draft, you see that, especially freshman quarterbacks, right? So Shedeur, yeah, I mean, I get it. I understand why you take the swing on Shedeur. I probably wouldn't do it. I'd rather have Eugene Wilson, but I understand like the nature of it. Oh, I'm going to get Shedeur Sanders there. Really, DJ Lagway is really the not the head scratcher, because again, I understand where people think they believe in his talent, and again, he could be Cam Newton, right? But when you look at the 110, you're sitting there taking a shot on it, and Devy, you have to wait 3 years. There's a lot of things that can happen for a Devy quarterback in 3 years, right? Maybe he doesn't perform well. Maybe there's a coaching change. Maybe he transfers. Maybe they get a veteran to come in and compete with him. There's so many uncertainties with that quarterback position, the Devy position. I just want to move on from it. I don't want to take that risk, right? I'll take JoJo Trader, Colston Loveland, some of those other guys ahead of Lagway just because of the risk involved. Now, the guy that I want to highlight in this is Colston Loveland, because I do think that he's not getting enough love out there in terms of where he should be valued. Elite athleticism in open field. He has that good yak ability, route running in hands. He does that very well. Areas of improvement, separating his man. I think that's the one thing you got to see this year. Can he do that? Especially when he gets off the line. Strength off the line is definitely a question mark for him. And blocking, he's not an inline guy. He's more of that out slot guy kind of area. But if he can develop into an inline guy, now we're talking about a first-round draft pick in the NFL. Now, last year, he had 62 targets, 45 catches, 649 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He'll probably be the number 1 wide receiver on this team again it's a low passing volume, especially if Alex Orji starts for them, but he could really develop into a first-round talent possibly. Now, when we're going into the second round, TJ Moore in the second is he's a stud. I think that's a great pick. I love that pick there. Then you have the running backs, right? This is where those running backs kind of play. Omarion Hampton, Jaden Ott, Caleb Jackson, really looking at talent there, hoping that they can kind of break out, especially Caleb Jackson. Ott and Hampton to put up the numbers, but you're kind of worried about probably their NFL upside. Antoine Wells Jr., that was a fun piece I saw get drafted there. Haven't seen him go that high, but that's the thing about these combined drafts. Do you take that immediate production in 2025, right? And then next year, he's going to compete for an NFL draft spot. Or do you take Dylan Raiola from Nebraska, the quarterback at freshman, right? I tend to lean towards production early. And I like that, or value bump, right? So Dylan Raiola could have a value bump and you're going to capitalize on that. So that's why I like both picks. I think both are fine there. Deuce Robinson, Squirrel White is another one that's probably going to be an NFL guy. You love what he can do in the slot. You're going to love his production at Tennessee. I think that's a good pick. Ashton Genty might be the steal of the draft. I know some people, I think Christian Williams just came out with us on the channel here that on his mock or his ranking video. He has Genty, I think, at 2. So he really likes him, and I trust his opinion on that. That could be a steal there, right? Then you got Trey Harris and Mylan Graham. I'm sitting there at 212. And that's the other thing, too, about these guys. You should be looking at these Devy assets as tradable assets, right? You're not holding on to TJ Moore for 3 years. You might, but really what you should be doing here is looking at guys that can rise in value, right? Like if I could flip Mylan Graham or after I draft him, I would do that, right? Squirrel White as well. Ashton Genty might be that piece. He could be that piece that you're a contender. You have Ashton Genty. People are talking about his running back 2. He has a couple good games beginning of the year for Boise State. And then you're like, hey, I'll flip him for a real dominant asset on the NFL side when I'm going for it, right? That's how teams should look at these assets rather than, oh, he's going to be on my team next year, first round pick. Nah, don't do that. Look for guys that you can increase in value. I got to talk about TJ Moore, man. I love this pick and where he got there. He is absolutely talented, right? Smooth, expansive routes. When you're watching him play, like he is able to create separation and he is able to kind of run any route that's asked of him. Strong hands in every situation. He goes up and gets it. He's explosive. He was the most fun watching on tape that I've had this last offseason, just kind of watching guys. And the body control, man, like his ability to kind of contort his body on the outside, definitely can play inside as well. But just a special athlete. When you talk about areas of improvement, blocking, that's one of those things where you're kind of putting something down that he could do better at. And I think biggest thing for him is the offensive system could hinder his development. Can Clemson with Cade Klubnik come back in Riley's offense? What is that going to look like, right? Or are we talking about a transfer situation here with TJ Moore? But I think this is a fantastic pick in the second round. It's a hell of a value. When you're talking about him in high school, 50 receptions, 1,200 yards, 17 touchdowns this last year, number 4 rated wide receiver. Get him in the second round of this draft over some of those other guys. I think it was a great pick. I like this pick here. Like I'd rather have taken a shot on TJ Moore than a quarterback like DJ Lagway, right? Nothing against the DJ Lagway pick, but I just like the upside with Moore a little bit better, right? Now, when we look at the third round, this is where you get a little deeper, right? Nate Frazier, Jackson Dart, Dylan Gabriel, Riley Leonard, Sawchuk, Tatum, Julian Sayin, Mike Matthews, Aaron Nolan, and Sayin's at Ohio State now. On their sheet, it did not get updated. Travis Hunter was the ultimate wild card. We've talked about him plenty of times. What is he? Cornerback, wide receiver, right? And I like that pick. I like going for it there. I mean, a third round, that's a hell of an upside pick, especially if you have a couple extra, draft picks in there. Roderick Robertson and Devin Neal. I think Devin Neal at the end of the third is very, very good value. There's a ton of good values here. When I'm looking at Dylan Gabriel, he's going to have a great year at Oregon. You're looking at that Bo Nix trajectory, taking a shot on him. Could be possible there. The one guy, though, is Julian Sayin might be the dude. And I hate to say it as a Michigan fan. I absolutely hate the fact that they might have found this guy. And I hate freaking Nick Saban for retiring because they got him. But he has absolutely performed exceptionally well. He lost his black stripe, I think, after 9 practices. Accuracy is there, intangibles, athleticism. They're really talking about Julian Sayin as being the starting quarterback at Ohio State and possibly early, right? We're thinking of Will Howard. If he struggles and Sayin is out there, man, it'd be impressive for him to get on the field. But this is one of those quarterbacks I'm willing to take a shot on, right? In that third round, fourth round, with their upside and what they could be. Biggest areas of improvement, and the thing that might keep him off the field is his frame. That is the big thing. 195. How does that look? Crowded quarterback room too. They are absolutely crowded, but he's kind of made a name for himself. So maybe you don't worry about that as much. And Division I processing, especially as a freshman, especially for a team that is expected to win a national title. That is the big thing here. Ohio State's expected to get out there. So if Howard is serviceable, I don't know if Sayin's going to get in there, but let me tell you what, next year, I bet you he is the starter, and I bet you they're excited about him out there in Ohio State, unfortunately. Now, we get into the fourth round. We got Nicholas Harbor, just the ultimate wild card there, tight end / wide receiver, just the ultimate athlete. Greathouse is another sneaky good pick. I like that pick there. I think he could be a value as well. Concepcion, I think, is a very good value play there. Damian Martinez, kind of going through these. Avery Johnson. Tez Johnson, though, at 412. We're going to dive into him a little bit. I still don't think people are understanding that Tez is getting first-round scouting buzz. Tez Johnson is getting that buzz there. The other kind of the pick I was a little about was Jalen Daniels. Again, the quarterbacks, right? I have such a bias out there, y'all, about taking those quarterbacks in the fourth round. like Jalen Daniels, right? I think he's got that back injury coming out there, and I don't really see quarterback NFL upside with him. I did see it with Julian Sand, right, in the third round. So if we're talking about those guys, Dylan Gabriel possibly, I think, is a better quarterback than Jalen Daniels, right? So I don't mind those shots, but man, those guys that went after him, Damian Martinez, even Dane Key, Ryan Wingo, right? Another Texas wide receiver freshman coming in that's supposed to be pretty good. Tez Johnson, those guys all seem like they have much more NFL upside, and I probably would have leaned there. Now, the guy that I would do on a pinpoint, though, is Tez Johnson. Like, when is elite playmaker, speed, explosive route runner. And yes, he's an older prospect. Yes, he's small. And yeah, the play strength's maybe not there, but dang, he can play. He's getting first round buzz out there. He fits what the NFL likes. And he might be the number one receiver in Oregon. If he outproduces Evan Stewart, this kid's getting drafted day 1 or day 2. And you can just kind of mark my words there. I think that he has a different profile than what Troy Franklin had. If he develops, if they have a great season this year, I think Tez Johnson could be a big riser up there. And that was a good value pick there. All right, let's get through the last 2 rounds here. Luke Lachey could be tied in one, and at the 5th round is a great value, right? With him and Loveland going 5 rounds separated from each other. Jalen Hale, again, injured, so you're really taking a shot, and hey, will he bounce back there? Bryant Wesco, another Clemson wide receiver. Jordan James, James Peoples, Aiden Childs. DJ Giddens is getting a little love out there from the scouting community, getting him in the 5th round. Deion Burks, Jaden Blue is a value pick. Absolutely like that one. Darius Taylor, LaQuinn Allen, and then Jonah Coleman at 5'12". Again, very good values. I thought the people that were drafting in this Devy draft did a fantastic job of searching for values there. The one guy that I want to kind of stand out, Darius Taylor, is kind of slowly becoming one of my guys. I like him. I think he's a 3-down kid out there in Minnesota, right? He got injured, so he didn't really perform as well as you'd like down the stretch. But at the beginning of the year, he's one of the best running backs in college football, not just freshman, right? He's coming in as a sophomore. Receiving ability, has that 3-down ability, change of direction, the contact balance, all of that is there. Areas of improvement, he's got a high pad level, pass blocking, and he's got to work on his long speed. Will he get quicker? I don't necessarily knock guys for having like not great long speed, because I think it's overrated, but he's definitely got to be able to change directions faster and get back up to speed. That's something to watch, but he's young. He's going to be able to improve all that. I think he's a great grab here in this 5th round. And the last, round here, Quentin Martin Jr., great shot there at the running back position. Gatlin Bear, I worry about that a little bit. He's not at Michigan anymore. When you're thinking of where, he's going to go on his mission. So that's something to note. Jaden Davis, Malik Benson, Luke Haas, Malachi Coleman, Eric Singleton. Some of those guys here, you're really just taking some shots on. But the guy that I want to kind of do, Malik Benson, right? He was really sought after last year. Malik Benson was a big guy. There were some companies that really loved Malik Benson. They were talking about him being Jameson Williams. We were kind of down on Malik Benson last year as a site and at TDR. We were kind of like, hey, I don't know how he fits in that offense, Jalen Milroe, all of that. And we rated him lower than most. And I think that we were kind of right about that. I don't know if it was a Malik Benson thing, though. I think the biggest thing we were concerned with was the offensive system, and I think we were right there. But again, now, new situation, Florida State. Explosive, comes in and he can be the guy, right? He could be the wide receiver 1 kind of looking at. I did the big depth charts for Florida State, kind of dived into that whole profile for our top 25. And really, Malik could be that guy. Yak ability is there, and he's a double move specialist. And I think he fits well when we talk about DJU and being there, and DJU's kind of lack of a deep ball guy. I mean, he'll throw it deep, but accuracy is not necessarily there. A lot of Malik's where he performed well at the community college level was behind the line of scrimmage, negative ADOT, wide receiver screens, quick slants. Florida State did that very well, right? And so you think of Keon Coleman, you think of Malik Benson a little bit. Areas of improvement, limited production for sure. Struggled against SEC defenders at Alabama. That was a big kind of knock against him. And a QB play could be an issue. I think with DJU being there, I think that does limit him a little bit. Unless DJU is taking big strides this offseason, I think that's the big thing. But yeah, he did struggle against SEC defenders. Now he's going to ACC. That's a little easier. ACC fans don't get mad at me, but you could see him bounce back. I think that you could see a scenario where, hey, you get this guy in the 6th round, but then he gets day 2 capital, and you're excited about that. Well, that was the 6th round supplemental. So shout out Jordan for letting us kind of dive into it. Big thing I want to highlight right now, if you're watching this, you probably play in Devy. We do have a Patreon here that we do. We do Devy Dynasty rankings. Jay Stein just built the first ever that I know of Devy trade calculator, where we have our values plugged in to our Dynasty rankings as well, and overall rankings. And we have a calculator now. We're just testing it out. All of our patrons have it right now. We haven't published that yet, but it is definitely worth $5, which was what we charge. On top of that, you get Substack access, you get Discord access, you get the Stein Index, which is Jay Stein, all his analytical profiles. He pulls from everything. Any advanced stats you want to know, he has them. Patreon only podcast, in-season content that's coming. We do all of that, and you get it for $5. That's it. And we're running a special right now. You pay for 10 months, you get 2 months free. So go check that out in the description below is our Patreon. If you like Devy, you like Dynasty, you like that content, draft content, we have tons of content out there for you to watch, to be involved. The Discord is some of the greatest guys I've ever been around. They're super friendly, great, just talking ball. I'm really excited to kind of talk with them this season as it goes. So go check that out. We appreciate you guys. We'll check you guys next time.